Now at Havana, Cuba, where the power is out across the entire island, according to local officials there. Cuba is under a U.S. energy blockade. It has not had any oil shipments in 3 months. Chief Washington correspondent Mike Emanuel reporting live on the huge changes and the difficult situation.
Cuba, you said that Cuba wants to make a deal.
Yes.
What would the United States get in return for that, and why should Americans trust Marco Rubio to negotiate it?
Well, Marco Rubio is doing a great job. I think he's going to go down as the greatest Secretary of State in history. Look at what we've done as a presidency. Look at what we've done as an administration. They trust Marco. And so do the American people trust. He's been successful no matter where he's been. He also speaks the language, which is always nice and always helpful. But he's dealing, and it may be a friendly takeover. It may not be a friendly takeover. It wouldn't matter because they're down to, as they say, fumes. They have no energy. They have no money. They're in deep trouble on a humanitarian basis. And we don't want to see that, but they were very, very bad to a lot of people, as you know, and a lot of people living on the Cuban-American vote, which I got at record levels. Very important. Those people are very important to me. I know what they went through. They went through hell. Some of them have gone on to be some of the most successful people in the country. Cuban-American business people, some of them are like the most successful in the country. And a lot of them are friends of mine because I've been fighting this battle with them for a long time. The Castro regime was brutal, but they lived off Venezuela. Now they don't live off Venezuela. Sends them no energy, no fuel, no oil, no money, no nothing. They lived without Venezuela. They couldn't have made it. And we cut them off from everything else. So, yeah, they're going to make either a deal or we'll do it just as easy anyway. Yeah.
And boy, oh boy, you just can't make this up, man. What a time to be alive. Quite frankly, we do not know what to expect next. But right here, the dictator of Cuba announces on a national broadcast that Cuba has submitted to Trump and now negotiating with the United States. Boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Que en correspondencia con la política consistente que siempre ha presentado la Revolución Cubana, bajo la dirección del general de ejército como líder histórico de nuestra revolución y la mía, y colegiado con las principales instancias del partido, el gobierno y el Estado cubano, funcionarios cubanos sostuvieron recientemente conversaciones con representantes del gobierno de los Estados Unidos para buscar por la vía del diálogo la posible solución a las diferencias bilaterales que existen entre nuestras dos naciones. Estos intercambios han sido favorecidos por actores internacionales. Y aquí me quiero detener. Siempre que hemos estado en situaciones tensas en las relaciones con los Estados Unidos, aparecen esfuerzos por buscar canales de diálogo, por buscar conversaciones. No es la primera vez que Cuba entra en una conversación de este tipo. Yo creo que la más reciente, el ejemplo más reciente, fue la manera en que el general de ejército condujo las conversaciones con el presidente Obama en una etapa muy reciente, y todos sabemos los resultados que dieron esas conversaciones. Bueno, ahora también algún grupo de actores internacionales favorecieron el desarrollo de esos intercambios. ¿Cuáles son los propósitos que estamos siguiendo con estas conversaciones, con los propósitos que nos hemos planteado? Bueno, en primer lugar, determinar cuáles son los problemas bilaterales que necesitan solución.
Want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Hey. Why this beat so cold?
We will make America proud again. And you try to we will make America wealthy again. And yes, together, we will make America great again.
Today, for the first time, Cuba's dictator acknowledged talks with the United States after intense economic pressure from the Trump administration. Joining us now with more is Kevin Corke. Good evening, Kevin.
Evening, Charlie. There are actually three prongs to this Cuba story tonight that collectively seem to be pointing to a major change in the island in the not-too-distant future. On the one hand, the biggest news of the day is, as you pointed out, Cuba's President Miguel Diaz-Canel confirming today that his government is negotiating with the Trump administration and that talks are serious and sensitive. Now, those conversations signal a potentially historic and economic and strategic partnership with the U.S., which would be massive. By the way, the announcement comes as the island continues to struggle and suffer through some of its worst economic shock in history, thanks in part to the U.S.-led oil embargo, which has kept fuel from entering the country for about 3 months. The resulting lack of energy, food, and rolling blackouts leading to unprecedented protests, which have, frankly, called into question the leadership's effete grip on the island's enkindled masses. Now, the talks, if successful, could potentially lead to Cuba's biggest economic opening since the nationalization of its economy all the way back in 1961 in the wake of the Cuban Revolution. Perhaps not coincidentally, today the Cuban government announced the release of 51 people from the island's prisons as part of a Vatican-brokered deal. There have, by the way, Charlie, been multiple reports that Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been engaged in direct high-level dialogue with a number of the island's top brass, including Raul Castro's grandson, Raulito. No confirmation of that from the State Department of the White House. Then again, no denial either. Charlie.
Thank you very much.
What do you want to see in a deal? You're talking to Cuba. What do you want to hear from them?
Well, I am holding Cuba. Cuba is a failed nation. Cuba also wants to make a deal, and I think we will pretty soon, either make a deal or do whatever we have to do. We have a lot of great people that happen to vote for Trump. Not that that matters, but we have a lot of great people from Cuba that were violently and viciously thrown out of the country, and worse, their families were killed. And so we're talking to Cuba, but we're going to do Iran before Cuba.
What is
and you know, people have been waiting 50 years to hear this story with Cuba. When I left Palm Beach today, there were thousands of people on the road. I'm sure you saw them. And they were from Cuba and from Venezuela, all friendly, waving the flag and waving the American flag. They've been waiting 50 years for what's happening with Cuba. So I think something will happen with Cuba pretty quickly.
Ladies and gentlemen, similar to Venezuela, the communist regime in Cuba has been attacking the United States for decades, transgressing on our national security objective to secure the Western Hemisphere. First, under Fidel Castro, they aligned themselves with the Soviet Union, now Russia. Then they aligned themselves with the Communist Chinese, our economic adversary. Then Cuba became a hub for transnational criminal organizations trafficking narcotics into the United States. It's safe to say Cuba has been a destabilizing force in the Western Hemisphere for decades. But in his second term, President Trump has set out to utterly crush, dismantle all adversarial entities, countries, powers, principalities that have been problems for the United States for literally decades. President Trump is imposing, implementing, enacting, enforcing the Monroe Doctrine, the Monroe Doctrine. He started by blowing up the drug boats, all the narcotics trafficking vessels that were found in the Caribbean, in the Atlantic, in the Pacific. They are now fish food at the bottom of their respective ocean. It's amazing. Then he applied maximum pressure on the socialist regime of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. And then in January, 20 Delta Force operators descended on Venezuela, took Maduro, kidnapped him, took his wife too, and now he's in prison in New York with P. Diddy. So awesome, man. And the final piece on that chessboard is Cuba. Cuba has been the worst and longest lasting. The Nicaraguan regime is up there too, but Cuba, in my opinion, is the biggest one. And now President Trump, ladies and gentlemen, has done it again.
Oh boy.
Cuba is surrendering as we speak. The Cuban dictator has just announced that they are now in talks with Marco Rubio and the United States, and a deal will be made. Rubio and President Trump have talked about a friendly takeover, a friendly neighborhood takeover of Cuba. We come in, take their country, we run it. We don't need a regime change. We just, point some guns at the heads of the current regime, and they do as we say. They stop.
We can do this the easy way. Oh, we can do this the hard way. That's what I heard. That's what I heard now. That's what I heard. You heard what they said now. I'm just repeating.
Ruining their country with communism. They become capitalist overnight. Amazing. At the meeting with other Latin American heads of states at the Shield of the Americas Summit, the launch of the initiative to tackle the cartels with over a dozen other countries.
Well, we're also looking forward to the great change that will soon be coming to Cuba. Cuba's at the end of the line. They're very much at the end of the line. They have no money. They have no oil. They have a bad philosophy. They have a bad regime that's been bad for a long time.
So he said, Cuba is at the end of the line. Ladies and gentlemen, and indeed it is. Remember, the Cuban people called for Trump to come in and do this. This is just one picture from a protest, but there have been dozens with hundreds of thousands of Cubans in the United States saying they want freedom. Of course, Democrats are going to support the communist regime because they have never met a dictatorship that Trump toppled that they didn't want to support. It's crazy, No kings, but they support every king that Trump topples. Every supreme leader he takes out. Okay, well, Cuba, the leader of the Communist Party in Cuba, and this is the guy, I just want to put this into perspective, that has called the U.S. pressure on Cuba fascist, criminal, and genocidal in nature, right? He's saying Trump is genocidal. That's a crazy accusation. Trump is a fascist, even though he's the one censoring political opponents. Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, I'm going to tell you how he's releasing political opponents to please Trump. It's so funny. But here is Miguel Diaz-Canel announcing that, yes, indeed, they are in talks with the United States. And
boy, it looked like he been when I showed this in the beginning of the show, it looked like he been having a rough night, boy. Like he been sweating. He looks strong the hell out.
It's over. This is it.
Que en correspondencia con la política consistente que siempre.
No, I'm not gonna go through that. Listen to this brother here again, but
to please President Trump. I believe that's just a move to say, look, don't just shoot, look, we can do what you want. This is a good faith action. Hey, we can be on the same page. Just like Delcy Rodriguez released hundreds of prisoners from Venezuela's infamous political gulag, Cuba's doing the same thing. So 51 people have been released from prison. I hate how the Associated Press, our American press, is saying 51 people. Okay, political prisoners. It's not like they went and, oh, you're a murderer, you're out. No, these are political prisoners that should not have been jailed. They were jailed for their politics. So this is amazing.
Yeah, you don't know a damn thing.
And of course, the regime is saying, oh, it's because they served their sentence and have maintained good conduct in prison. No, it's because you want to please Trump. That's obviously what's going on here. And let me just give you some perspective on who Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez is. This guy was attacking the United States after the Maduro incident.
Yep.
After the Maduro saga, he said they have no moral authority to point fingers at Cuba about anything. Absolutely anything. Those who turn everything into a business, even human lives. Okay, Cuba was defending the Maduro regime and taking advantage of the fact that Venezuelan oil was sanctioned. So they were buying it at a fraction of the cost. In exchange, Cuba was protecting that regime. So, who was doing business? Those who today hysterically attack our nation do so sick with rage because of this people's sovereign decision to choose their own political model. Okay, Cubans haven't had a fair election since most Cubans were born. Like, what are you talking about, guy? But it's just so crazy seeing guys like this talk, you know, puff their chest out, you know, Nancy Pelosi style, like all out, the guns out, the melons out. And then Trump comes in and says, we're taking it out. And it's capitulation. It's amazing. And he says Cuba's a free, independent, and sovereign nation. You know what I've noticed? Communist leaders love the word sovereignty.
Sovereignty.
I guess to them, sovereignty means the ability to fully keep your people under total control.
Yep.
And allow them no rights, no exercise of basic human rights. That's what sovereignty means to them. That's what free and independent means to them. Free only applies to the government and its ability to enact policy and to silence dissent. That's all. It doesn't matter what Cubans say. Cubans are calling for this. There are protests right now inside Cuba, have been for weeks, where people light things on fire. They do other things just for Trump to come in. Cubans hung. Actually, I need to show you guys this. This is incredible stuff. On my X account, Cuba, Cubans put flags, American flags, on their homes. This was in February, so a month ago, in Havana, the capital of Cuba. They hung these flags like a symbol, like, hey, Trump, like Batman, you know? You see that bat signal, Batman needs to go. Bruce Wayne no more, man. I am Batman. They want Trump to come save them, help them, liberate them from communism. But you have the communist leader saying, it's our sovereignty. We are a sovereign. Sovereign for whom? No Cubans are free. No Cubans have the right to dictate their life. And you know what's crazy? American leftists say the reason Cuba is broke and poor and its economy is non-existent is because of sanctions. They say that the embargo and sanctions that the U.S. placed on Cuba is why Cuba's poor. It's not communism, socialism. It's not that. It's the sanctions. They use this argument everywhere. But let me ask you this. When the communist regime took over in Cuba in the late 50s, one of the first things they did was expropriate resources, assets of American companies, plantations, cigar factories, sugar mills, just various things. They took assets that belonged to U.S. companies, U.S. nationals, without paying for them, right? It's one thing to just take assets, but it's another to not pay. Cuba right now owes the United States over $1 billion, or owes U.S. investors over $1 billion. If you adjust it for inflation, we're talking like tens of billions at this point, right? Has to be tens of billions. So in response to seeing its nationals lose their precious assets, the United States said, we are not going to trade with people that hate us. Like, we're just not going to do business with Cuba. We're going to sanction them. They're not going to be allowed into our economic umbrella, into our economic influence. They're not going to get protections from us in any way. They are screwed now. They're not going to bank in our banking system. That's a punishment for an action. For it's the consequence of bad behavior. But, you know, leftist, communist apologists, you know, the defenders of socialism, they come out and say, no, it's because of the sanctions. Yeah, but the sanctions didn't just start out of nowhere. We would have had a great relationship with Castro if he was like, hey, man, we're just going to be communist, but hey, you can still do your business stuff. But it's because of the communist ideology that someone like Castro could not have tolerated any foreign ownership of anything, because he doesn't tolerate domestic ownership of anything. So it's the ideology that leads to bad action that then gets punished by a much stronger country. So what they're essentially saying, ladies and gentlemen, is that for communist countries to survive, they need to trade with capitalist countries. Like, how hilarious, ironic is that? You know,
Oh,
it's
boy, oh,
like,
boy.
wow, Cuba's getting bullied by the capitalists. Okay, maybe because the capitalists built a country that's rich enough to bully people. How about that? It's incredible, but
Oh,
I
boy.
keep praying for the Cuban people. They deserve their freedom. Thank you all very much for watching. God bless you.
Shout out to George, man. What do y'all think? But again, man, this thing getting spicy. And again, we can go and wake up. Might be at night. It might be tomorrow. It might be next month. Might be a couple months. We just don't know what to expect next, man. But we do have an update from Trump last night on Air Force One that Cuba is being dealt with. And we heard the Marco Rubio announcement, and we heard that Iran is getting taken care of first, and then Cuba, something big is going to happen with Cuba. So we're going to see how this all plays out, man. I mean, boy, but it's just crazy to see how it's just all these moves, man. You know, people threatening Trump, and then this happens, and then now we're negotiating with the United States. We took Trump in. You know, we've negotiated with President Trump, but we know at first we were threatening and saying all kind of things. I tell you, man, boy, oh boy, oh boy. But that's the effect of having a president like President Trump. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with this or not, whether you know, people have this argument where they say this, they say that. Why are we worried about this? Why are we worried about them? We need to make America great, America first, America only. You know, some people disagree with, even some in the MAGA base disagree with some of these things that are going on, and majority agree. Y'all win with your thoughts, but we're gonna see how this all plays out, man. That's why I'm just like, let's let everything play out. You know, everybody's so quick to judge and bash and jump ship and act like they know everything. They're political. Everybody's a political expert now. You know, even the AI is winning as well. The times we are living in, boy, it's very dangerous, man. So prayers, man, prayers. I love y'all. God bless y'all and your family. And I'll catch y'all on the next one, man. Peace and love, you guys.